G'day guys and gal. After almost 20 years of storytelling, over 60 full-length novels, and an obscene amount of extremely dope-ass lore, the Horus Heresy has finally come to a close, with The End and Death Volume 3 just being released a few days ago. Now personally, I am not up to The End and Death yet, I'm only up to like book 40, and while awesome, the Horus Heresy is a long-ass series. Because of that, as a bit of an unfortunate side effect of 40k lore being my job, I have to constantly spoil everything for myself, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. Hence, I have read many synopsises, watched many videos, and have spoken to many people who have finished the series to gain a complete understanding of the Horus Heresy and its ending. With only 18% of you guys and gals reading over a dozen Warhammer books, it seems like most of you will also never reach the end of the Heresy either, so you would probably be keen to know how it ended. Not just from the perspective of the last book, but the key points from the end of the series as well as what happens to each of the Primarchs and the Emperor, as well as a few other key characters in the end. So with that said, today we'll go over the ending of the Horus Heresy, detailing the fate of all the main characters, the key events that occurred, as well as how the fight between Horus and the Emperor went. In doing so, we'll also look at how close to the original lore the new lore is, before then wrapping up with if the ending was good and what happens next. Also, massive spoiler warning, no fucking shit. Although to be fair, it is extremely common knowledge that Horus kills Sanguinius and then the Emperor kills Horus after getting mortally wounded, so that's not really that spoilery. Let's get into it. I'm obviously not going to recap the entire Heresy, with many books not being that important towards the ending, so I'll just set the scene. After years of brutal, hectic fighting, epic victories, and crushing defeats on both sides, the Siege of Terra kicks off. Horus, Perturabo, Mortarion, Angron, Magnus, Fulgrim, and their respective legions, along with a few thousand wordbearers and Night Lords, are sieging Terra. Conrad is fucked off to go do his own thing, and Lorgar is in exile after Horus beat the shit out of him for attempting to usurp him as War Master. Alpharius was killed by Dawn after attempting to metaphorically play chess with a rampaging bull, which led Amegan to also withdraw the Alpha Legion from the siege, although they do pop up. To defend Terra, we have the Emperor, who is stuck on the Golden Throne, battling Horus's psychic might, the Chaos Gods, and the Warp Rift underneath the palace simultaneously, thus his attention is pretty firmly stuck. Rogel leads the defenses, with Sanguinius and Jagadai making it back to Terra with their legions. Vulcan is also present after getting through the webway and works with the Emperor to create the Talisman of Seven Hammers, a device that would destroy Terra and the entire Chaos army in one mega death explosion as a final fuck you if Horus was to win. Guilliman, Russ, and the Lion are rushing to Terra with their massive legions, which if they were to arrive in time, would catch the traitors in a hammer and anvil, especially with how depleted the traitors were. Corvus was off doing his own thing and Ferris was dead. The siege has multiple brutal phases, as Perturabo's unstoppable force crashes with Dawn's immovable object. The traitors are basically aiming to make Terra corrupted enough to allow demons to manifest on its surface, thus Angron, Mortarion, and Magnus would be able to join the battle directly. Horus remains on board his ship for the siege and is grappling with his own insanity and the weight of his choices. A surprising reveal is that Horus isn't just this possessed meat suit for the Chaos Gods, he is still very much himself and has his own free will. See, when the Chaos Gods create a champion of Chaos Undivided, they can't actually do much to properly control them, as all the Chaos Gods have to agree perfectly, which never really happens. Hence, champions of Undivided are given a shitload of free will and to use the power given as they see fit. Now, with the Siege of Terra being its own mini-series, and by mini I mean it has like a dozen books, a lot of super awesome shit happens. So to make it easy and to keep this video under 100 hours long, whilst also giving you something to look forward to if you ever do read it, I'll just focus on the key characters and what happens to each Primarch. Magnus is hellbent on attacking the Emperor directly by wearing down his psychic warding and energy, so he enters the webway and begins trying to tear the rent open, which would doom Terra. Vulcan is sent to stop him, and the brothers engage in a ridiculously one-sided duel as Magnus kills him time and time again with the most obscene use of warp sorcery ever seen. Vulcan dies countless horrific deaths, however he regenerates extremely rapidly due to his enhanced perpetual powers. Eventually, he is able to get close enough to Magnus to beat his demon brother to death and banish him. See, Magnus believed that he'd created a spell powerful enough to kill perpetuals, and maybe it could kill other ones, but this is motherfucking Vulcan, Lord of Drakes and Stomper of Nerds. Even as Vulcan is unmade and turned into a blackened skeleton, he pushes through the mega attack and banishes Magnus screaming back to hell. Perturabo was increasingly disgusted by his allied forces, their complete lack of strategic coordination, their obscene debaucheries and heresies, and also their total lack of respect. Despite the fact that he was the only one holding the siege together and actually allowing the traitors to make ground, they still treated him like shit. So he simply said, fine, do it your fucking self, and he left the siege along with his legion. However, by the time he left, so much damage had been done that Perturabo was no longer essential for winning the siege, as so much chaos corruption had seeped into Terra that conventional tactics no longer applied. Mortarion faced off against Nathaniel Garro, his wayward son, in an epic duel. Garro was juiced up on holy faith and did a pretty bloody good job. However, Mortarion was a Primarch and he killed Garro, but not before Garro gave him a cut he wouldn't forget. To avenge Garro, Jagadai Khan was next to fight Mortarion. Morty was way too strong though, so Jagadai settled for a mutual kill. Morty was banished and Jagadai was put into a death-like coma. Angron was tearing a bloody sway through the defenders and eventually took on Sanguinius himself. Both angels were red on that day. Both had forever carved their name into the psyche of their enemy for all time with the amount of blood they had shed. They begun beating the shit out of each other. However, Angron was pretty much unkillable. As they fought, Horus was psychically shouting / begging in Angron's head to kill Sanguinius, and despite impaling the angel on his blade, Sanguinius was then able to rip Angron's nails out of his head, giving his brother one moment of horrified lucidity at what he had become before he was banished. As a bit of a side plot here, Khan and Sigismund finally had their epic duel. Ascended Master of Death Sigismund versus fully juiced champion of Khorne Khan. It was an epic fight, but Sigismund was on an entire league of his own and brutally massacred Khan with a kill that wouldn't be out of place in Mortal Kombat. Fulgrim's fate was pretty satisfying. During one of the many big traitor pushes, Fulgrim led his Emperor's children against the Saturnine wall, whilst Abaddon and his elite Justerin teleported under the wall to attack from below. However, it was a trap by Rogul, which resulted in Abaddon's entire company getting slaughtered by the absolute elites of the defenders, guys like Nathaniel Garro. Despite Abaddon putting up a good effort, he was the last alive and was on the brink of death, until Plot Armor swooped in and teleported him to safety in the last second. It was actually a pretty nice scene, one that actually made me like Abaddon a bit. He basically sits there in shock and wishes he died along with his men, horrified at being the only survivor, the coward. On the surface, Fulgrim is tearing his way through the defenders, and then motherfucking Sigismund charges in and starts beating the shit out of Fulgrim. Fulgrim eventually gains the upper hand, but by then Rogul Dawn himself enters the fight. Rogul beats the shit out of Fulgrim, outclassing him and actually landing a killing blow, but Fulgrim regenerates due to his demonic power. Getting humiliated by Rogul and seeing that the attack on the Saturnine Gate had failed, Fulgrim withdrew his legion to instead focus on terrorizing and massacring the civilians of Terra. He would then later retreat with his legion to be the only demon Primarch who didn't get banished during the siege. Now you might think that this puts the loyalists at the advantage. Only Horus remained in play, with Rogul, the Emperor, Valdor, Vulcan and Sanguinius being up and running. However, Terra was literally getting dragged into hell, and there were so many demons and Chaos Marines still active that unless Horus was taken out, Terra would be lost. For Horus, he knows that Guilliman is very close to arriving, like he will arrive before Terra is lost, so Horus lowers the shields of the vengeful spirit to try bait the Emperor to attack him directly, thinking that if he is able to beat the Emperor into submission or kill him, Guilliman will bend the knee and join him. Then we get one of the saddest scenes in all of Warhammer lore. The Emperor and Malcador know that it's time for Malcador to take the Big E's place on the Golden Throne, allowing the Emperor to fight Horus at the expense of Malcador's very soul getting consumed and obliterated by the throne. I guarantee you will tear up reading this scene, like even the Emperor is devastated and it shows, probably his most human moment. Then our merry band of heroes alongside a bunch of Custodians and Space Marines teleport onto the Vengeful Spirit, other than Vulcan who stays behind in case he needs to activate the talisman. But let's just say the teleportation didn't go so well. Sanguinius and his warriors arrive on the ship normally and proceed to head to Horus. Rogul Dawn gets teleported into a pocket dimension controlled by Khorne. It manifests as a desert full of the dead bodies of thousands of Imperial fists, where time flows differently. Khorne traps Dawn in there for centuries in the attempt to corrupt him to chaos. The Emperor arrives on another weird pocket dimension, Bridge 8, on a ship with only 6 bridges. Then half of his custodians get puppeted by the Chaos Gods and attack the Emperor, forcing him to kill many of his own beloved warriors. Something else has started happening as well. With all the warp energy and power, the Emperor is getting like really strong, like easily strong enough to body Horus. However, he is also becoming a thing called the Dark King, the Chaos God of Ruin, which would be a very bad thing for humanity. As a bit of a side plot, John Grammaticus, Alanis Persson, and a few other misfits are traveling alongside with the first captain of the Alpha Legion to try get into the throne room and reach the Emperor, with it being revealed that originally the Alpha Legion Legion were waiting to see who would win and then join that side. However, with Chaos being extremely cringe, they've decided to throw in their lot with the Emperor and try to save humanity. Also, the Dark Angel Core Swain alongside a bunch of fallen angels are attempting to reignite the Astronomicon, which would banish a lot of the corruption and allow Guilliman and his brothers to get to Terra really quickly. Oh yeah, and Garviel Loken, the OG protagonist of the entire setting, gets on board the Vengeful Spirit as well. As the Emperor is preparing to ascend, after all the Dark King would be a very effective weapon against Horus, Alanis finally catches up to him. Alanis is the Emperor's oldest friend, even older in age than he. The thing about Ol is that he was and forever is a man of integrity, which is why he abandoned the Emperor thousands of years ago. He tells the Emperor that joining Chaos isn't the solution, that he needs to let go of it. The Emperor looks at Ol, he thinks of his Primarch sons, and he decides to let go, ripping the Dark King from himself while also tearing out his mercy and compassion to give himself the best chance of killing Horus. The banishment of the Dark King heals many of his warriors whilst also breaking Rogel Dawn out of the Cornite Pocket Dimension. While this is happening, Sanguinius reaches Horus first and confronts his brother. And yes, Horus does give him the "join me, brother," and even depowers himself to his normal Primarch form as they fight to try help convince Sanguinius. See, Horus had actually suppressed a lot of his own consciousness and free will during the heresy to make his moves unpredictable, but now he is reclaiming his true self. Because of that, he actually doesn't want to just kill everyone. In truth, he actually wants to create his new Mournival, but with the Emperor, Valdor, Sanguinius, Dawn, and his other brothers by his side. As they fight, Sanguinius actually gains the upper hand, as in their Primarch forms, he is the superior warrior. However, eventually Horus snaps, just as Sanguinius is about to land the killing blow. Horus Ascendant is a monster. The brothers charge at each other one final time, with Horus beating Sanguinius before proceeding to bludgeon him like a disobedient dog. Sanguinius is broken, his face hangs loose, his legs are snapped, and his lungs are full of blood. He can't even choke out his last words as Horus picks him up and snaps his neck and spine, killing the glorious Golden Hawk Boy. Demons then skitter out of the shadows to string up Sanguinius' mutilated corpse, as Horus then waits for the Emperor. In the meantime, Valdor encounters Abaddon and engages him in combat. The death of Sanguinius triggers the Black Rage in his sons, who all go on a monstrous rampage that scares even the demons. They massacre a fuckload of traitors, however in their rage they also attack and kill their allies and even the Custodes. They are so juiced up that each Blood Angel is now a juggernaut in their own right, kind of like the Imperial Gal Vorbak but even stronger. The Emperor alongside his buddies like Alanis reach Horus, with Horus being surprised that the Emperor shows no emotion at the sight of Sanguinius' corpse. The Emperor starts speaking at Horus but not to him, instead speaking directly to the Chaos Gods, which confuses Horus. Loken also steps forward and speaks, which causes Horus to get emotional and ashamed. Like he just wants to hug Loken and be done with all this bullshit. But then his rage, pride and corruption kicks in and he gets frustrated that he is showing weakness at his time of glory, so he attacks the Emperor. In the meantime, Valdor and Abaddon fight, with Valdor being shocked at Abaddon's power. When he scores a hit on Abaddon, he gets a vision of the next 10,000 years of grimdark horror, with Abaddon as the new War Master. This genuinely stuns Valdor with overwhelming despair as he now fights to survive. Then the rabid Blood Angels arrive and begin attacking everyone, giving Dawn and Valdor the opening they need to charge towards Horus and the Emperor's battle. The battle isn't going super well for the Emperor. They fight on countless planes of existence, even beyond physical and spiritual, but Horus is just straight up more powerful at this point. But the Emperor is a sneaky bitch. He uses the most cheeky fuck tactics to keep in the fight, including stealing some of Horus's power, distracting Horus with illusions to give himself time to recover, fucking with Horus's emotions, and so on. But it's still not enough. But then something incredible happens. Inspired by the words of Cyrene, who psychically broadcasts the words, "The Emperor must live," across all of Terra, the cult of the Emperor is formed as countless people form together and begin chanting words from the Lectitio Divinitatis, their faith in the Emperor being absolute. It's so absolute that it begins cleansing parts of Terra and weakens Chaos's grip. It also powers up the Emperor and allows him to continue his absolute slogfest with Horus, while also reigniting the Astronomicon. However, Horus is still winning. Then in quite an emotional scene, Alanis goes to the Emperor and is yelling at him to get up. He promises the Emperor he will never leave his side again, but he has to get up and he has to fight. He gives the Emperor the Athame, a special knife that can kill even Horus. Alanis then turns to Horus, opening fire with a fully automatic las gun before yelling, Fuck yeah, you bold piece of shit! Not a single step closer! Horus finds the scene quite confusing before then hitting Alanis so hard that he is turned into a red mist, killing him so hard that not even his perpetual powers allow him to regenerate. However, this gives the Emperor time for his final gambit. He changes his form into Loken to manipulate Horus into giving up his power now that he has won. Horus does so, and then the Emperor then rushes him before they begin pulverizing each other again. This time though, the Emperor gets the upper hand, so Chaos begins trying to flood Horus with power again, but Horus is sick of it, and he tries to keep the power out. He wants to die, and he asks his father to kill him so that he may die as Horus, not as a puppet of Chaos. Everything he's experienced during this fight with the Emperor has really changed him. The Emperor tells him that he forgives him, before driving his knife into Horus's heart and killing him. The arch-traitor dying with a smile on his face, breaking Chaos in the process. The Emperor then collapses. Dawn arrives and picks up the Emperor's broken, barely alive body before they all then teleport back to Terra, which is quickly being cleansed of corruption as the traitor forces retreat en masse. Loken stays behind and sits by his father's corpse, with even Abaddon telling him that he is allowed to freely leave. But then Erebus kills Loken, cause fuck Erebus, that fucking rat. So overall, a pretty solid ending. There is obviously way more that happens, with many more side characters and subplots, but this is the main meat of it. Overall, I'm happy. It does a great job of following the original lore while also adding more flavor. Like with the Alanis vs Horus scene, it also actually slips in some references to future stories, including some of the Eisenhorn books. With the Heresy now wrapped up, it seems logical that we will start getting some books about the Scouring, the epic campaign waged after the Heresy where the Loyalists retake the galaxy and drive the traitors into the Eye of Terror. Either way, what a fucking ride. That was epic. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then subscribe. We are gunning for 600k and I need every hand on deck for that. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.